Are we live? Okay, hi. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thanks so much for waking up with us, starting your day with us. As shared, I am Renee Appelle, head of global partnerships at Vox Media, and what that means is that I get to represent 16 brands like Eater and SB Nation, Pop Sugar, Thrillist, New York Mag, and so many more that make us a top 3 digital ComScore site and afford us the opportunity to partner with innovative marketers like yourselves on bigger programs. I am excited to be joined on stage today by Shivram. I will first apologize for the fact that I have a little bit of laryngitis, so I'm hoping that it doesn't interrupt our day, only mostly because he'll be doing most of the talking. But if you hear me cough a little bit or stutter a little bit, it's based on the fact that I'm really struggling to get some words out. But as shared, I'm excited to be on stage here with the global head of marketing and delivery at Uber Eats. Shivram is no stranger to marketing efforts for major food and drink companies. He's been a key player at companies like Tender Greens, Jamba Juice, Blaze Pizza, and so many more. Shivram is an innovator. He's a keen understanding of forward-thinking innovation and product marketing with a strong sense of ability to drive effective leadership through marketing strategy. Lastly, Shivram is both a lover of sneakers and cars, with a particular affinity for Porsche, but I will let him tell you a little bit more about himself, his role, and maybe some of his personal passions as he introduces himself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Renee. My name is Shivram Vaideeswaran. I am global head of delivery marketing for Uber, and that encompasses basically our brand vision, positioning, strategy for our Uber Eats brands, as well as many of our recent acquisitions, including Postmates and Corner Shop. I also lead our product marketing teams, our wonderful US and Canada marketing teams that get to create great content like our Super Bowl spot that just went live this week, and our brand partnerships and media teams. So it's exciting to be here, and thank you for taking the time to listen.
Yeah. There's certainly a lot that role encompasses. In addition to sort of Uber Eats, you also run Postmates. Can you tell the audience a little bit how you differentiate your strategies there and how those two brands come to life for consumers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with both the Uber Eats and Postmates brands, we've kind of taken a little bit of a different approach. And so Uber Eats is kind of like the bigger global brand that we've been able to leverage against showcasing how you can get anything on demand. And so that includes our online food delivery partners, our biggest enterprise partners like your McDonald's and your Chipotle's and your Taco Bell's. You've got over 900,000 restaurants that are on the platform globally across multiple different markets. And it becomes the easiest way for you to access what the restaurant that you're looking for, when you want it, where you want it, and how you want it. And with our Postmates brand, we've actually been able to find a way to get a little bit more niche in terms of the consumer that we're targeting. And so they really focus on what we call the in-the-know consumer. And it's really someone who is like that cool hunter, the person that knows the restaurant that you want to go to before you know the restaurant you want to go to. And that's the person that you want to find and say, hey, give me the best recommendations. And so on a city by city level, Postmates has been able to come in and find the coolest spot that you have to have and gets them onto their platform and is able to really focus on that small business. And so we've been able to use this as an opportunity to bifurcate both of our brands and then also create a little bit more of a marketing strategy between being able to get anything on Uber Eats and being able to get the thing you want and crave on Postmates.
That's a really clear distinction. I think it's really helpful for all of us in the audience to sort of hear more about the distinction between the two. You've been at Uber for a little over 2 years, and you started at the height of the pandemic, an interesting time for all of us or any of us who started jobs during the pandemic. Obviously, things looked a lot different when we were pitching our jobs to when we maybe started them. But what was interesting, particularly about your venture into Uber during that time, was that restaurants were so dependent on people being able to get their food delivered to them. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that shaped your marketing strategy and how you were able to serve the restaurant community during such an important time in their tenure?
Yeah, absolutely. So previous to Uber, I spent over 15 years within the restaurant industry. So I have a huge affinity for the restaurant world, as well as a ton of experience there. And, really what we saw was coming from the restaurant side, many different restaurants and whether you are a mom and pop and or some of the biggest chains in the world, had not really invested in digital the way that they had needed to. And it's just slowly starting to build that capability in terms of things like online food delivery, in terms of things like e-commerce, being able to have a mobile app where you can access items on a very quick basis, being able to do pickups or drop-offs in stores, things like that. And so, when you've got the biggest companies in the world that are still building out that technology, a lot of those smaller, small merchants and smaller businesses just didn't have that capability. And so when the pandemic hit, and really, most of the country, if not the world, had shut down, put a lot of those restaurants at risk, especially with different rules in each city. Different states had rules. You didn't know whether you could have dine-in, whether you could eat outside, whether you could do pickups, whether you could actually do deliveries. And so once we were able to help a lot of these restaurants sort that out in terms of what are the rules and what are the regulations, then it comes down to, okay, now how do I access these consumers that are stuck at home, have been trapped eating, the same probably mac and cheese that they've had for a couple months now, and are ready to get back out and break their routine. And, delivery was a great opportunity to be able to open up a new set of audiences to some of these restaurants that had never really thought about it in the past, and hopefully gave them another business channel that they were able to access. And so it was a huge, I think, accelerator for many businesses around the country, especially small restaurants and small businesses. It helped really push technology for a lot of our bigger enterprise clients, especially things like being able to integrate into POS systems and, finding ways to make it much more seamless back of house. And then it also helped accelerate our business, which meant we needed to also think about how we are advertising in a new way to really drive awareness and saliency of the best selection on our platform.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things that happened during COVID for a lot of brands is the acceleration of technology, right? The use of connecting with consumers in digital ways that maybe they never had before. And that was never more acute than it was for small businesses, right? Folks who hadn't really invested in that area. You did a lot with Visa to support those small businesses through grants and other resources. Are you able to share a little bit about how you and Visa partnered together to ensure that those small businesses could sort of keep up with demand during these times?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2022, we launched a program with Visa called Grants for Growth, where we actually were able to provide $10,000 to over 100 different merchants across 10 cities in the country to help support not only things like if you've been dealt with a natural disaster or restaurants that have been hurt during the pandemic, to be able to help set them up for success as they move forward. And so we had over 5,000, almost 6,000 restaurants apply for the program. 92% of the recipients were from a diverse background. 69% were women-owned restaurants across the country, which is amazing. And we were able to help them with, a $10,000 grant for whatever they need in order to be able to accelerate their business goals. We've actually just expanded this year. And so for 2023, we've announced the second program actually last month at Davos, which is now global. And so now what we're doing is we're actually going to be providing 100 merchants around the country grants to help accelerate sustainable packaging. Sustainability is a huge push for not only Uber and Uber Eats, but also for many restaurant partners around the world. And it's just important, especially as you start thinking about the role that climate change plays out there. So being able to get more sustainable packaging for our restaurants, especially at a cost, hopefully in a scale that can provide them with more access, is going to be critical.
As you think about your ability to help brands both in the US and globally, what's unique about Uber and a lot of your efforts is that you do operate in over 45 countries. You have huge global reach, and yet similar to other brands in your space from a global perspective, there are trends and sort of unique market forces that are present in each country and in each region you operate in. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're able to differentiate and serve each community and each market in the way that they need?
Yeah, I think the first thing that we've always been looking at is who's the main audience that you're trying to reach. And, in some countries we have been able to build the delivery business in a way that you've been able to get a majority of your audiences to at least try the platform or understand how it's used, or you have enough selection on there that gets people excited about it. In other markets, you still have an opportunity in a lot of white space to have to educate people on what is delivery, how do I use it, what is the benefit to me, why would I do this versus cooking at home. Sometimes there are cultural norms that you have to assess and understand in places like France and or Japan, where cooking at home is the norm, and it's actually seen as something that is like culturally accepted, as well as something that's important to keep families together. And so when you're bringing something like delivery in, it feels like a affront to the culture versus an add to the culture. So we have to really think about how we're messaging and be conscious of that, in terms of the last thing you want to do is be a company that comes in and says our way of doing things is better than the way you've done it for the past 200 years or 300 years. And so that's never a good way to drive success. I think the second thing we've seen that's really changing is access to delivery that's outside of just restaurants. And so you're starting to see grocery, alcohol, convenience now become table stakes in terms of the delivery game. And you have markets such as like Taiwan and others where you can get delivery in like under 10 minutes of pretty much anything that you're looking for. And so being able to build that convenience and that like effortlessness through our technology is going to be really important. Here in the United States, grocery continues to grow. We see that in Mexico, we see that in France, we see that in Australia and other markets. So getting the right providers on there and becoming hopefully the way that you can access delivery on a weekly basis, where you can set it and have it delivered to you, and it becomes a much more convenient way to access your products and moves it away from just online food delivery. So those are some of the big changes that we're starting to see within the marketplace, and especially as you start to look globally, the opportunity for us on delivery continues to get bigger and bigger.
Building on those changes and the way that you're able to differentiate yourself, there's a lot of competitors in your space. So even some of that work you're doing to help certain communities understand the value of delivery and thinking about delivery differently, you're helping your whole category, but then you have to pull away from category competitors and differentiate your offering. How are you able to differentiate what Uber Eats is able to deliver versus some of the other folks in the delivery space?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple ways. One is always going to play the role of selection. It's making sure you have the best selection on your platform. You need to have not only just the main restaurants that people are looking for, but also like what they're craving. And I think that's really critical. So getting into whether it's suburban markets, whether it's on major cities, finding the right restaurants and making sure that you have them available so that it's top of mind. I think the second is going to be through marketing. You always have to drive saliency. We are a immediate use category. When you are hungry, you open the app. And so that means you always have to be top of mind from a brand perspective, which allows you the ability to get into big events such as things like sports and the Super Bowl and other events around the world, where you have this immediacy effect that you can build, especially by making sure that you're the first brand that they think about. And I think the third piece is going to come through in technology. So the way that we've been able to really leverage our logistical strength, things like order tracking, things like the reliability of our platform, start to build a lot more confidence when I actually need to get something delivered immediately, or if I'm having friends and everyone's hungry and wants their food immediately, or if I ran out of diapers and I need a delivery because I can't leave the house. You want the most reliable platform to be the one that's going to get you what you need when you need it. And I think as we continue to strengthen our technology in those areas, it becomes a really good differentiator for us.
You work with a lot of different retailers, Walmart, Apple, restaurants. How do you court some of those folks? Like when you're thinking about adding new folks into the platform, is it based on that message of like, we deliver and on our promises in ways that your consumers are going to be felt cared for? Share a little bit about the story that you're able to pitch to your customers, meaning the brand partners that help deliver all these great products to consumers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we're able to leverage is we have over 5 million earners that are on our platform globally, and I think those earners are where we're able to say you will have access to deliveries on a speed and scale that you can't get from a lot of other players. And I think that really helps us not only from a domestic perspective when you're looking at moving from just your big cities into the suburbs and into smaller areas where a lot of these merchants such as a Walmart or an Apple or things like that are looking for partners that aren't just going to leave certain geos hanging. And I think when you look at it on a global perspective, it gives us a little bit more of that leverage to come in and showcase the size and scale, and then being able to show the technology that people have been using now on the mobility side for years. And so they understand that like when I tap a button, it just works. And that's what consumers are expecting, and that's what our merchants are expecting as well. They don't have the time to go out there and deal with finicky technology or things that don't work. When that happens, that's when they shut your tablet down or they turn off your process and they move to some other delivery partner. So we have to make sure we are able to educate them on the benefits of the platform, not only from a technology, but also a size and scale perspective.
I love that. And knowing that both mobility and Uber Eats sort of leverages that same ease of use, that same best-in-class technology. With Uber One, we love how you're able to combine those two offerings to create additional value and really help consumers understand how to leverage them both seamlessly. We're going to see you talking more in market about that, especially this weekend. Can you share a little bit about what consumers can expect to see and how you're able to use the love for both brands to sort of create that halo effect in Uber One?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those who aren't familiar, Uber One is our membership program, which provides you discounts against both rides and deliveries in multiple markets around the world, which is really exciting. We launched this last year, and it's a great opportunity for not only those power users who use our platform on a daily basis, but also even the occasional user to see really strong savings and value as a part of it. And so, one of the things that we were able to really do some digging into and understand is that consumers, especially within the United States and in other markets, started to say, you know what, membership sounds really cool, but I don't know if I order enough delivery to really make that worthwhile, or I don't know if I take enough rides. And so, when you actually look at the break even behind the program for a consumer, it's actually very low. And so even if you use the Uber Eats 1 or 2 times a month, you actually pay off that cost, if not more, and get such strong savings with discounts on your orders. You also get free deliveries, which is an incredible benefit. And so a lot of the work that we're doing, especially this big Super Bowl launch, and if you've seen any of the work that's happening that's out there right now, we've got a great spot with Diddy that's going to air during the game, really focused on showcasing the savings of the program. And especially at a time like now when, inflation is high, it's a recessionary market, being able to showcase savings and the benefits of the platform that you're using on a daily basis really help to drive that additional frequency.
We started today's session talking a little bit about how you have such a passion for innovation. You continue to push innovation and the business forward. What excites you about the future? Maybe we'll see ChatGPT write our orders for us.
I'm sure all of you have tried to mess around with it at some point in time. I tried to ask, what's the best way to educate people on ordering groceries on Uber Eats through ChatGPT, and it came up with this very long, verbose sentence of how things work, but again, it never used the words Uber Eats, so I was a little frustrated. But maybe I got some work to do. We've got some education to teach it. I think the things that we're most excited about, one is continuing to move past online food delivery into what we consider new verticals, which is grocery, alcohol, convenience. I think grocery is a huge untapped market that we are able to jump into, especially with new technologies, thanks to acquisition, as well as our amazing engineers and product teams that are constantly looking at innovating and building out the capabilities, like incredible search, making sure that we're able to bring in a full store's inventory onto our platform, and then giving you that access on demand for everything that you need. I think that's a big one. I think the second is you're seeing a lot more work in the autonomous space, both on the mobility side and the delivery side. We've got tests and pilots running across the country, and it's a really interesting way to be able to say, is there an opportunity to add additional volume to the platform, which makes it even easier and hopefully provides more access to our consumers, which is great. And I think the last thing is, the world of delivery moved from, you used to get, pizzas and Chinese food delivered to you, and that was totally standard. And now you can name any restaurant from the most gourmet Michelin star restaurants down to, the bodega down the street, and now have access to get that delivered straight to your door. I think you're going to start to see that change even in the world of retail. Many retail partners are starting to jump in. You're seeing H&M's and the Sephora's and the Apples and the Walmarts, where if you need an iPhone, it gets delivered, and it's actually powered by our platform in many places, which is really cool, and you're getting it within 30 minutes. You're going to start to see, I think, more retailers move into that space where people need things on demand, and there's already the capability and the logistics that are out there. It's now just finding the right ways to connect those users and being able to say, I may not have to leave my home if I need something in an emergency. I think malls and shopping are not going away as much as people like to exacerbate their demise. I think everyone still wants this idea to be able to go connect and find those places, but it will change the way that you're accessing it.
Well, that's it from us, but if you guys have any questions, we're open to taking a few from the audience. I think we still have a few minutes if anyone wants to ask anything. Sure. Do you want to pass the mic? Okay.
Question about kind of the two segments that you have. You have the earners. Thanks. So without the earners, you don't really have a business, right? And we often talk about the consumers more than we give credit and do to the earners on the platform for technology like Uber Eats and Uber, how do you think through your marketing strategy between the two different segments to attract those earners and get them to engage with your platform and be loyal to your platform as opposed to spending their time with another gig type platform?
Yeah, so the delivery business is actually even more complicated, which is it's a three-sided marketplace. So there's us, which is the marketplace that allows you to see the merchants that are on the platform. It's the merchants that are actually the ones that are either making the food or selling the items. And then it's the third, which is the earners that are actually doing the deliveries. And so it makes it a very complicated, I would say, love story that we have to make sure that we're constantly communicating with all three pieces. You need to have demand on the consumer side, so you need to be communicating with them on the selection of the platform, like all the reasons to believe, making sure you're staying salient and top of mind. Then you have your merchants, so you have to constantly be communicating with them about the benefits that Uber Eats can provide to your business, whether that is additional revenue, additional sales scope, being able to expand your geographic area, being able to reach new consumers that didn't know about your platform before, or your restaurant, or your retail items. And then you have to go communicate with earners. And earners, there's a base kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs of things like, I need to make sure that I'm making enough money on an hourly basis, and there's earnings. There's also things like, want it to be a very safe and reliable platform. All of those things have to come along no matter what, or people aren't going to sign up for it. And then you have to start looking at what's the right positioning to drive more loyalty, because many of them do work with all of them. I'm sure many of you have seen at the airport, there are multiple stickers on a lot of those cars. It's not just an Uber sticker. And so, it's in their best interest to be able to leverage as many platforms as possible. But for us, we're constantly looking at how do we look at what actually loyalty looks like in the long run. What are the things that are most important to them? Is it a sense of community? Is it understanding technology? Is it access to things that you get on Uber that you can't get anywhere else, which is I can now do rides, I can do deliveries, I can do package deliveries. There are several different functions that you have available to you, so you could actually build your day around that versus some of our other competitors that are out there. So that's what we're constantly looking at. And to be honest, it's not one message that you have that is constant throughout the year. It ebbs and flows. Sometimes it is, you're going to have to go heavy and really communicate earnings because that's what earners are looking for. Other times it might be more around the different business opportunities that they have available. Other times it might even just be showing how many of our earners have gone on to build, either fleets, or they've gone on to showcase, what they've done with those earnings over the course of time and how they've been able to achieve even bigger goals or broader goals as a part of it. So we're always looking at how do we make sure that we're positioning the right consumer sentiment for the right time? Yeah.
Hey, so I was in LA and I made a quip on Facebook that a bunch of nerds are in LA when they're not sightseeing and they're taking picture of Uber bots delivering the delivery stuff. So I have a picture of it right here of the Uber robot. Can you talk to us a little bit about that strategy and how many of these are deployed out there? How's that feed into the future of what you guys are doing, and is this a real technology that's going to take off and scale you guys, and how's that play into all of that?
Yeah, we're working with multiple different partners in the autonomous space, both in the mobility side of the business and the delivery side of the business. And really, I think right now it's a couple of test pilots that are out there that we're leveraging in places like Santa Monica, in Silicon Valley. We have some of the robots that are running through in a partnership with Neuro in Houston. So it comes kind of to two pieces, I would say. One is we have to be able to understand, the reliability, the safety, the technology behind it. So there's going to be some testing involved in terms of how does it connect back to our API? How does a restaurant then use it? How does a restaurant understand how to be able to access it? There's a lot of consumer education that's involved in it because, you have to make sure a consumer feels comfortable that this is going to show up at their door. What's the right education to tell them, okay, here's the passcode that you need to put in, here's how you access it, this is how you send it on its way. And then there's also a lot of of course, legislation work that happens out there to be able to say, okay, now there's this vehicle that's on the road, what's the right process or ability to be able to leverage it on, public roads, and how do we make sure that it's being used safely and it works with our platform and the rules of our platform as well as our partners. So a lot of it is right now just it's testing, and we're doing a ton of testing with it. I think there's opportunity for the future and where it can go, but it's still test and learn.
Is anybody abusing these bots? Like I saw it navigating down the sidewalks over everything, and people were just walking around the bot, and I just was thinking, does anybody ever kick it over or anything? Like,
Not that I've seen so far, but I also haven't I haven't dug into all of the data on like how things are working. But I mean, I think it's probably right now a little bit more of a novelty, you know? So I think it's, I've seen the same thing. My friend of mine sent me a picture of one of them driving through their neighborhood recently. And I think that's exactly what it is. It's more like, whoa, this is weird. And you know, soon it's either going to be one of those things that becomes more commonplace, or, you know, if it is a nuisance, then you have to figure out how to make it not a nuisance.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Renee.